you know, I'll never forget a good memory on my side of things. My first ever late model win was the first night at State Line. Every year, like for a period of years there, they did 20 laps and they stopped. They did 5 laps at the end and started a straight line. They went 5 more laps to see who was going to win the feature. And it was me, Dick, and Doug Eck, actually. It was the 3 of us. And I didn't know we were starting 3 wide, and I ended up starting on the outside, which is typically where I would be, but that was a memorable moment for me, is, you know, beating him at that moment when he was on top of his game, and you know, at that point, and you know, a lot of good talks, a lot of tremendous respect for a guy like Dick through the years, and you know, he was one of the old school guys, you know, and that's things like that aren't quite like that anymore. And he was, when you were young like me coming into it with guys like him, you weren't just given respect, you earned respect. And you know, he was kind of a proprietor with a group of guys who were just like him, that you pretty much had to, you know, earn their respect. And it took me some time, but eventually we got there, and that's makes it a lot of fun. I've had a lot of close quarter racing.
Barton's style, you know, you could kind of predict how he was going to race?
Yeah, you know, he wasn't afraid to move around the racetrack, and that's a good point to bring up, because a lot of guys, you can develop their style and their type of racing, and you know, you can kind of tell where they're going to be on the racetrack. And Dick's more, you know, when you're young like me, you're trying to develop yourself to be maybe like some of those better guys, and I developed at a young age, try to move around the racetrack and not let somebody develop your style of racing, or be able to tell what your style of racing is. And that's what sets you apart, is when somebody doesn't know what you're capable of as far as where you may run on the racetrack and stuff like that. And that's, the Dick was probably very similar to that as well. You know, he never was one you could predict where he could be on the racetrack. Now, I think typically a lot of laps, you know, he ran a lot of very good laps around the bottom, but he wasn't afraid to go up on top either. But you know, he was smooth. You know, he wasn't going to make very many mistakes at that point in his career. You know, he was once he got locked into a groove, you know, he wasn't one to make a whole lot of mistakes. You know, and that's what makes it tough.
How would you define that?
Well, you know, everything starts from outside the car to inside the car, right? You know, he's a clean-cut kind of guy, and races that, you know, he always raced me that way, and you know, he was competitive, you know, and he was there to win, but you know, just like the rest of us were. But you know, his version of the smooth was just like we said a few minutes ago. He put himself in the right spot where he needed to be on the racetrack, and he wasn't as predictable as some guys are when you're racing with him, you know, and that's what sets you apart, you know, all the years he's raced. But you know, he wasn't one to make a whole lot of mistakes. You know, you could count on him. You could count on him to be there at the end and be there through the race. And
here, let me give you a Mike Knight story. We wrecked the car one night and at State Line, and Mike came over and offered his car to Dick.
I remember that.
We'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about earning respect, Mike.
Yeah.
You earned it that night.
Sure. Yeah, I remember I believe he was maybe in a points battle.
Yeah, we needed to race that night.
Yeah.
And you offered up. I don't think we needed it. I think we got the car fixed.
Yeah.
But we wrecked the hell out of it in heat racing. Mike was a young kid back then, just getting into it. He came over and said, "Dick, if you need my car, you can have it."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.